There's someone in particular I'd love to ask you about, Justin. Some ECW stuff. Of course, like we said, WrestleMania is going to Philly. Everyone's talking about ECW. You worked with Sandman a lot during your
Yes.
career. Um, do you have any favorite Sandman memories? And what was your first impression of him? I heard you said he couldn't work in the very beginning. How was your matches with Sandman?
Um, when I got the Sandman, he had actually, I remember hearing horror stories of him just being sloppy, not very good, always drunk, you know, whatever. You just heard the bullshit.
Right.
But when I got to work with him, it was right before he went to WCW. Remember, he went to WCW for a minute?
Yes. Was that where he was hack? Or
Yes, hardcore
yeah.
hack.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
That's when I got to work with him, and because of that, he was leaving. He actually, the reason I got to use the Singapore cane is I drove him in storyline. I drove him out of ECW and took his kendo stick from him. Like I beat him up, took him out of TV, and then he went away. You know, but that helped me kind of. I took out the Sandman, who was beloved in ECW, but he was good back. And when he had started to get pretty decent, like his moves were never great, but he didn't hurt you. He had good punches, and the stuff he could do, he did well. He didn't do much, but what he did do looked okay. He took some. He had his kind of like five moves and the bumps that he could take, and we just stuck to that. That's the one thing is again, and I can't stress this enough for young men and women. Know your limitations. Like I don't do a lot at all, dude. My finishing move is the tombstone pile driver, and I do a super kick as a backup if somebody's too big. And I got like two or three other moves. That's it. I don't do a whole hell of a lot. Like, and I know today you need a little more because again, you watch AEW, you're seeing so much crazy. But again, I think that's what's killing a little bit of the business is just too much, man. If you can't wow people with some stuff, with telling a story, and the moves are so big and they're getting bigger, and guys are taking these horrific scary bumps. I just it's that's not the way to get over, and unfortunately I don't know, man. I just it's just a different game than it was back then. Wrestling was a completely different animal, but in a good way. Guys like Steve Austin, although Steve was one of the greatest of all time, especially to his gimmick to talk the way he talked and to do what he did. But I don't know if he could get over the way he did today just by what I mean? I mean, I'm sure he could, but it was just right place again, right time. And the Attitude Era was, you got to remember, you're coming out of the cartoon stuff. You're coming out of WWF having the Aldo Montoyas, the Mantars, the Atom Bombs, those shitty gimmicks, right? Doink. And then you had WCW with even worse gimmicks. And then you had ECW, which was starting to become more of that realistic. You know what I mean? Like it just looked raw. It looked a little more real, and that's kind of where the business was headed. So you gotta, if you could be ahead of trends and kind of see, you know what I mean? It's very important. But yeah, I don't. I tell you, I do not. I do not know how guys get over today because it's just it's very difficult. There's just so much out there. I wouldn't even know how to get over today. You know, comparatively speaking.
Rewind, recap, relive for over 50 episodes. The revolutionary force in wrestling interview.